Well, why do you think people are ignoring this?
China took the opportunity for through the pandemic to engage with countries all over the world. And nobody is thinking about that because we're all thinking about our health, our fate, our vaccines, whether we're going to go to school. The changes in political environment are taking precedent in the media rather than really, guys, you should worry about this because it's not a person who's an alarmist. I'm not an alarmist. I'm just a regular citizen. I live in Southern California. I am just awakened to information that I think people should know. And the reason you saw my book, the reason why my books are all colorful, they have pictures in it. And if you don't know where Laos is, fine, there's a map. If you don't know where the Caspian Sea is, fine, there's a map. I made every book so that it was like, I don't want to say a children's book, but it was like a book that you could actually read, that you don't have to know anything ahead of time. I explain social credit by showing you how the social credit works. So everything is in pictures.
I really appreciated it, actually. I like the colors in the pictures. Colors and pictures are great. Come on, who needs all those words?
I mean, I think there are plenty of words in the book.
There are plenty of words.
Yeah. I mean, I can't read, which is why I do videos.
Oh my God, yes.
Guys, don't rope me into that.
You're laughing about that, but the truth is that people need what you do. They need videos because it's easier for them to turn on a video or a podcast or something and watch it than to sit down for a long period of time and read thousands and thousands of words of text. And I'm aware of that, but Matt, I don't have your skills. So I haven't created these videos, but the best I could do is to create books with writing that's understandable and pictures so that I show you exactly where you were talking about digital, where the digital, Silk Road is, where China's ports are. This is where China's airports are. All over the world, you can see where there's piracy. Here are the latest pirate attacks. I actually have pictures that show little pirate boats.
It's great. Do you think you did that? Do you think you did that because you have so many years in education and teaching, like that gave you a certain perspective?
Yeah. I taught math for 35 years. People ask me every time, why is X plus X 2X? I don't know. Why is 1 apple plus 1 apple 2 apples? And, not to be sarcastic to them, because I wasn't. I answered the question every single time, realizing that it's this, it's just another person who doesn't know. It's fine, right? But given that, if they can't see that this is at universities, right? I retired from, colleges and universities, right? They need to see it. So I drew pictures. I was a big picture person. So when I found people who they said, I don't want to read a long article like that. It's too complicated. Part of the complication is if you don't know where Fiery Cross Reef is or where Scarborough Shoal is, it's very difficult to read about Scarborough Shoal, right? Where are the paracels? Where are the spratlys? You can talk about this, but unless you show a picture, that's why I love what you guys do. Seriously, like you talk and then you have a picture. You show what, Matt, this is back to your videoing, right? They can actually see what you are trying to say. But people who are reading a book, they want to know this information as well, but they can't see it. And so I drew pictures.
Well, so hold on, just to get a little clarification. How is an X an apple?
That's good. Well, you can take a class from me and I'll go through the whole reason why the integral of 1 over x is the natural log of the absolute value of x plus c.
Yeah, I understood that.
A new show. Math unexplained.
Math
Ununderstood.
unrepentant.
No, like
It can be about like
math undivided.
making fractals by
Hey, I like
hand
that.
on the complex plane or something. Those are because they're pretty, right? You know what I'm talking about. I can't read, but I can do math.
You can see it, right?
Yeah,
Fractals.
fractals are pretty.
They are.
As are your books. But so to get a slightly more hinged, so it's interesting. At the start of 2020, it seemed like the Belt and Road was getting bad press. It seemed like, like countries like Malaysia were beginning to fight back against a lot of these predatory Belt and Road loans. X equals Apple. But then the coronavirus happened. How did that change things for Xi Jinping's Belt and Road plan?
As soon as 2020 happened, China went in and into the South China Sea and stopped oil exploration, stopped countries from building on their islands, started moving into countries. And that's not specifically Belt and Road, but China thinks of itself as the manufacturing capital of the world. Anyone who needs something manufactured, come to us because we're going to be the product distributor. They needed these trains not to help other countries. They needed the trains so that they could deliver all of their products to all of these places. And so there were all of these deliveries of face masks and PPE and ventilators and so on, continuously using the Belt and Road to transport materials that were needed by countries to all of these locations that shut down. Now, China didn't really shut down in the same way. They had their workers working despite the virus. Oh, yeah, they didn't have a virus in China, I remember. They don't have any deaths there. So they just had everybody continue to work. And same thing with the maritime Silk Road. They needed their ships traveling. And so their Belt and Road was the avenue for face mask diplomacy and vaccine diplomacy and all of their other kinds of diplomacies that they sent around the world.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're talking about also them going into the South China Sea, because it was kind of like when everybody was distracted, right? They were going to the South China Sea. They were starting this border conflict with India where they were encroaching on this territory. And it was like they were thinking, well, now's a good time for this.
It's a good time to build the concentration camps in Xinjiang, right? It's a great time to take more of Bhutan's land. I mean, they literally built Chinese villages on the other side of the border. Little just creeping in every country, taking a little bit more. They have a military base in Tajikistan, everywhere around. They said, we're your benefactors. We have money. We will help you. I don't know if you did a video on this, but they had these bars of gold that they were using to secure their money. It was lots of gold. And the gold was actually not gold at all. So I'm not sure how much money China really has. I'm sure that because they have produced things for all over the world, they have lots of money, but they told countries everywhere, we will help you. We know that you're having a really hard time, and we know that, you're financially unstable, but we can give you money. I don't know where the United States thinks it's going to just pick up, a few $1 trillion here or there. I mean, as if we have forgotten what dollars means, right? So I think, but everybody thinks that money grows on trees. So that's why everybody in the United States has their hand out to get, money, free money, right? Isn't that great? So China didn't just offer to give money to, loan money to the United States. They offered to loan money all over the world. Of course, there was a requirement that you help China out whenever China needed it.
And what's interesting to me that a lot of these Belt and Road deals, that were announced were very, they're often really it's going to be hundreds of $1,000,000 in this country or, billions of dollars in Africa, this kind of thing. And then when it gets down to brass tacks, it seems like a lot of these projects kind of disappear. They don't actually,
the
happen.
money never shows
or they
up.
start and they peter out.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah.
So that happened with the Philippines. So my focus really for quite a few years was just on the Philippines, because the Philippines fascinated me for quite a number of reasons. In part because Benigno Aquino and Duterte are such different personalities, and how that happened is just fascinating. So China, when Duterte was, before Duterte was elected, China offered the Philippines $26 billion. They haven't gotten that money. This is 4 years later because Duterte took office in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't gotten the money. They just made these promises. And if you look at the pictures of what China drew for what Manila could possibly look like, it is phenomenal. If you fly to Shanghai and you say, wow, that's really beautiful, can you do that for my country? And so you come back to Manila and you go, wow, little tuk-tuks here and, very narrow roads here. And, we're going to build this magnificent city that is just as beautiful as Shanghai. Those specs are amazing. Nothing happened. China did not give that money to the Philippines. It was just promises. But Duterte, he was strung along like a leash, like he was on a leash. And China was like, here, I'll give you something. But he gave him he didn't give him anything. Right. And just, he wants him to give over his islands and his oil. That's what he wants.
Yeah, it's interesting because, Duterte had actually run when he was campaigning. He campaigned on this standing up to China platform, famously saying that he would ride a jet ski out to the Scarborough Shoal to defend the Philippines' claim. Later, he said that was hyperbole.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, actually, it's almost like a politician didn't follow through. But then, yeah, it was like he campaigned on this stand up to China platform, and then very quickly he moved towards China and away from the United States. But yet, despite ditching the U.S. as the long-term partner, Duterte really didn't get what he was promised for his country. So that's going to obviously, at some point, people in the Philippines are going to be like, wait a second, this just didn't work.
It's okay. He doesn't have to run for re-election.
That's right. They only get one term.
Yeah.
Well, he's trying to get his daughter, Sarah, to take over his place.
Oh, really?
So, so we'll see what that happens. She's the mayor of Davao, right, where he was a mayor. And so she's a mayor now, and he's trying to get her to become the president. So we'll see what happens with that.
So we might have the Duterte dynasty.
You had the Aquino dynasty, Cory Aquino and Benigno, and we have it here, H.W. Bush and George W. Bush, and I think it's nice to have a legacy where a tiny group of elite people run a supposedly democratic country.
Well, I think what's interesting about what you were saying is sort of how people around the world are enthralled by these Chinese megacities. They see that, it's like, oh, wow, what a functional society China must be. Please tell us how we can do that. But the reality is those cities exist because they exist in an authoritarian regime where the state owns all the land, is able to control every aspect of the economy to funnel it into any kind of insane construction they want. It's not something that can be replicated in other parts of the world without that same kind of authoritarian system.
For sure. Well, going back to what Shelley was saying about the islands, and what happened right after the pandemic or during the pandemic, China went and tried to take another island, Whitsun Reef. hung outside of Whitsun Reef with hundreds of boats, thinking, we're ready to take your island. They said they were parked because it was a storm. What a cockamamie. Like, really, you must work really hard, China, to come up with these like fabulous stories that make no sense, since there wasn't a storm and they were all tied up right outside of the reef. I mean, Duterte had to do something to get those boats away from there. And this is what China does. It gets really close and it says, are you really gonna, you don't want to have a war, do you? We're gonna get really close and we're gonna snatch this island. And unless they push back, China will take the island.
Which they actually call it the Scarborough model, named after what they did in the Scarborough Shoal, because I don't think they really expected at the time that they could get away with that. And when it turned out they could, hey, new foreign policy.
But they didn't have to get away with it. I mean, the United States could have gone, Barack Obama had this negotiation. China was supposed to leave. The United States could have gone in and said, you violated this. But just like the Alaska conversation with Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, you can promise 2 minutes and we'll take 15. This is your new model. Give me 2, I'll take 15. That's the China model.
It's like they say, if you give a mouse an island in the South China Sea,
He'll ask for a glass of milk.
Yeah, that's how the story goes.
Okay.
I should write children's books.
Uh-huh.